This week we're talking about the new Marvel film, Captain America: Brave New World.
Indeed. Are you feeling brave?
Let's see. Should I jump into a synopsis?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. In Captain America: Brave New World, Anthony Mackie dons the iconic shield as Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, navigating the turbulent waters of heroism in a world that's as unpredictable as ever. When President Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, played by Harrison Ford, seeks to exploit a newly discovered metal called adamantium, found on the remnants of this celestial something or other in the Indian Ocean, Wilson is thrust into a geopolitical storm. As nations vie for control over the powerful resource, an assassination attempt at a global summit reveals a deeper conspiracy, leading Wilson to confront the enigmatic Dr. Samuel Stearns, played by Tim Blake Nelson. Dr. Samuel Stearns' intellect has been dangerously amplified by exposure to something like gamma radiation. I don't know. Who cares? Directed by Julius Onah, the film delves into themes of power, legacy, and the moral complexities of leadership. Onah mentions a connection to the themes of the film and his immigrant background. Mackie's portrayal of Wilson captures the internal struggles of a hero stepping into a monumental legacy, while Ford brings a grizzled gravitas to President Ross, a leader with his own hidden battles. Brave New World attempts to redefine the mantle of Captain America and what it means to truly be a hero.
And does it succeed, Baron, in attempting to do all those things that you said it was attempting to do?
No, I don't think it does. It's a convoluted mess and falls really flat, in my opinion. And where maybe there was a chance for some of that complexity to have meaning and depth, they just skim right over it.
Yeah, that's fair. Look, I'm going to be a little controversial.
Good.
And say, while I completely agree, it's an absolute mess, one best forgotten, parts of it I kind of liked.
Okay, what did you like? I'm curious.
Well, I liked, you mentioned in the synopsis, geopolitics, corruption, all this sort of human stuff. And I liked that the Marvel world, after the, all this multiverse nonsense, has kind of come back to home and contracted. It's like the, do you remember in Australia we had in the Keating years, the recession we had to have?
Right.
And now is talking about, oh yeah, we do need to, we might need to go backwards before we go forwards.
Oh, right. Yeah, cool.
This is what it feels like to me. Like it really, there was nowhere to go when you can do everything in the multiverse. And now they've just taken it back to politics, real life, and a kind of human hero and a human president.
That's a great point. They have tried to ground it. They've tried to make it about a hero who has none of the powers of his predecessor and has to make do. So, he can't just go out there and just, kick ass because he's got these sort of God-given or whatever, gamma radiation-given powers.
Yeah.
He has to grind and it's hard and he has imposter syndrome and all of that to deal with. And then you've got this backdrop of, like you said, politics, nations trying to fight over resources. And then I think probably for me, the most intriguing part of the whole film was the Dr. Stern character and his sort of riddle-like nature or his mastermind nature. But that, unfortunately, was probably the least fleshed out part of the whole story.
Yeah. I've just sort of driven you into having to say some good things about it. But let's go back to the negatives and start there. And I think you've hit the negative on the head with that character. It could have been so great.
Yeah.
Like, what was he all into stats and probability and that sort of crap?
Yep.
Like it was a well thought through character, but it's as if they either just didn't bother and he was, just symbolic, or they shot a whole lot of great stuff that they didn't include.
Easily could be the case because it was still long, but it didn't feel as gratuitous as some of the other Marvel films. Yeah, I think that what you're picking up on as this character has some well thought out stuff behind it probably comes from source material. That's my opinion. I haven't read the source material, so I could be getting way ahead of myself, but it felt like maybe there was great material there, and they just didn't do a very good job of adapting it.
Yeah, gotcha.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, and it's not the only thing they didn't do a really good job of adapting. It seems as though Anthony Mackie did a great job adapting into his new role as who is he?
Captain America.
Captain America.
It really stuck with you, huh?
Yeah, it did. I don't feel I really got to know who he is, who the bloke is, behind the wings.
Yeah. As a performance, it's a charming performance.
Indeed.
And I think he understood that he had to be likable and that he had to be someone who's way out of their depth, but that you're still rooting for. And he had to be funny at times because there's gags in there, which I kind of felt like they fell a bit flat. But, it was a noble attempt. So I kind of felt for him. I think he was trying really hard to make this role work and be memorable, but the whole film lets him down.
Yeah, completely. And I think that he succeeds despite it all. Like I found him unbelievably much more relatable than most Marvel Universe heroes, including his predecessor.
Yeah, well, no, that's true. Yeah,
even though he had no script to work with, not really a decent film to work with, but the bloke kind of capped. I was with him, and I think he carried it despite having a crappy script and film all around him.
What do you think about Harrison Ford?
I'm not sure he gave his all into this role, but a little.
When was the last time Harrison Ford gave his all?
Okay, well, even though he didn't give his all,
that's me.
Sorry,
Harrison.
I'm gonna give a pro to Harrison here that even not giving his all, he gave a lot to the film.
Yes.
Like a 10% of Harrison Ford is a lot to give in a movie that perhaps doesn't deserve him.
Yep.
And I actually got old school Harrison Ford vibes from it. I felt like I was watching the guy from The Fugitive or something like
Clear
that.
and Present Danger or something like that.
That Harrison Ford era.
Totally.
And I think that's because the whole film reminded me of a bygone era. And that comes back to the, almost going backwards and grounding it in, the Superman movies of the 80s or Bond films.
Yes.
And all Harrison Ford action films. It just seemed like harking back to a simpler time when the American president sort of meant something in that way and that sort of thing.
Yeah, there were. So this is what's confusing about this film is there's chunks of the film that feel like it's trying to do that. And then there's a whole section that feels like it's trying to do a crime mystery thing.
Yeah.
With the other actor that I wanted to mention, whose name is just escaping, Tim Blake Nelson.
Yes. Who you can barely see.
Tim Blake Nelson sounds on paper like the perfect casting choice for this character. And yet I just was so disappointed by what we got of him in the end. But anyway, that whole thing, those storylines, they're compelling. They still work. I still want to see those sorts of films. And then we've got alien something or other that's landed in the ocean that looks like a giant person for some reason. Sorry, Marvel fans. I don't know why that's there. And it's got a special medal in it. Everybody's fighting over this sort of science fiction premise And then we've got, Red Hulk appearing out of nowhere. Like, just there's so many things that are Marvel things that kind of ruin the rest of it for me,
Yeah, they did. I'm forgiving those because I thought they were obviously just inserted to make it feel just a little tiny bit like the Marvel Universe when otherwise it was some superhero script that had been left on the floor in the 80s.
Sure, it still has to be all that stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah, but they included them in a way that didn't mess up what could have been a good film otherwise. The MacGuffin in the ocean, whatever, I don't even know what it was, but, it clearly existed for a reason. The Red Hulk was, you have to tie these things up somehow. And if you're going to put all your CGI in the end in a sort of hulky thing that pays off for people who like that crap.
Because it all has to come down to punching in the end. That's like every Marvel film ever. Like whatever we're doing, whatever the premise, whatever the MacGuffin, whatever the bad guy is this time, or the space thing, or whatever, it's always going to come down to, we're just going to punch it out. We will punch it out in the street. We'll ruin a bunch of buildings. We'll destroy cars, and then someone will win the punch out. The good guy will win the punch out, and that's it.
Yeah, except that I don't think we'd gone to a stage where we'd lost the punch out in favor of the stupid stuff where they just put their hands in the air and beams of light come out of hands.
Oh yeah,
that's one I don't like, and remember the Eternals. That was peak.
Peak.
Just,
but that's just punching with other things.
With other things. yeah. No,
Anyway.
that's true.
Okay. Hey, I think Marvel's cooked. I think it's done. I
think it's just started again.
You really?
I do.
This though, or just in general, it's they're formulating a comeback.
I think this represents the green shoots.
Oh my God! Of what though?
Well, of something. Now,
Right.
I don't know if this grows into a beautiful flower or a weed. Probably a weed, but I think the last universe is over. It was had the weed killer on it. We then had the Deadpool that was just making fun of the wasteland.
Yep.
And this is starting again, and I'm just interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean the slate though is just not what it used to be. You used to get whatever 10, 12, 15 Marvel films in a year, and now we're sort of, there's long gaps between them. You might get 1 or 2 in a year, it seems.
Hooray!
Yeah, I mean, yeah, great, but that's not a good sign for them, I would have thought.
Well, I think it's the recession that we had to have.
Great, great. I love it.
One final thing.
Yeah.
Anthony Mackie walking in to the White House for the first time, feeling like imposter syndrome, going somewhere where he's sort of not meant to be with his mate, who was a good performance too. He reminded me so much of Eddie Murphy.
Oh, wow. Okay. In which film?
Well, this is ridiculous, but I haven't seen Coming to America.
Okay.
But I've seen, I can just picture Eddie Murphy walking into somewhere, and I picture him coming to America. And it felt like that's what he was doing. And that was the moment when there wasn't much humor, but I started to see what Anthony Mackie could bring to the character.
Yeah.
Because he sort of had this Murphy sort of confidence about him and like playfulness.
Yeah. I actually thought, you know what, if you were going to compare it to another actor, I was thinking Will Smith. He had like a Will Smith charm and confidence about him, but in a very kind of, Will Smith, particularly younger Will Smith, had that really relatable quality to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I actually thought he was pretty good. It's just, I reckon this was a tough gig.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I think that this film kind of speaks for itself, and that the more interesting stuff will come from what we were reminded of.
Okay, should we start on that?
I reckon we should dig into it.